Hi, I'm Blake Lively, and I'm going to be taking the BuzzFeed quiz, which iconic Blake Lively character?
Hi besties, I am Zuriyata Bashan Lashari with CoreVanta. Today we should discuss about the
In the shimmering chaos of Hollywood, where light and shadow perform their eternal duet, the ecosystem of fame operates like an intricate maze, engineered not for truth, but for spectacle. When Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively's names collided in a whirlwind of lawsuits, media narratives, and moral positioning, it wasn't just another celebrity feud. It became a blueprint of how power manipulates perception in the modern entertainment machine. The industry thrives on illusion, the ability to craft a story so polished, so theatrically precise, that audiences forget to question what lies behind the curtain. This isn't about who's right or wrong. It's about how each move, each statement, and each silence is weaponized to protect empires. Blake Lively, the golden girl of charm and control, and Justin Baldoni, the idealistic filmmaker who preaches empathy and equality, found themselves at the center of a storm that revealed the darker mechanics of Hollywood respectability. Both are products and prisoners of an ecosystem that rewards deception when it's aesthetically appealing. Fame, here, isn't just about acting, it's about survival. You don't just sell art, you sell the illusion that you're unbreakable, and in that illusion lies both power and poison. It began like most Hollywood collisions do, not with a scandal but with collaboration. The whispers began during the production talks that involved narrative ownership, contracts, and creative authority. Then, as tension grew, the story mutated into something uglier. Accusations, PR warfare, and moral posturing. What was once artistic partnership turned into a chess match of egos, played not in private, but across tabloids, legal filings, and digital battlegrounds where fandoms became foot soldiers. And here's the most dangerous truth of this ecosystem. What you see on social media isn't chaos, it's choreography. Every leak, every anonymous insider tip, every sudden silence is part of a calculated rhythm designed to control emotional tempo. Hollywood doesn't deal in truth, it deals in reactions. Whoever controls the audience's reaction controls the narrative. Blake Lively, the immaculate performer both on and off screen, mastered the art of strategic vulnerability. Her social media presence is curated softness, motherhood, elegance, humor, and just enough self-deprecation to disarm criticism. But beneath that warmth lies the precision of a strategist. Her PR teams understand how to blend empathy with dominance, turning every accusation into a mirror that reflects her as misunderstood rather than manipulative. She doesn't need to scream. She controls the temperature of the room simply by appearing unbothered. Justin Baldoni, on the other hand, represents the new Hollywood moralist, the man who speaks of kindness, accountability, and emotional intelligence, yet now finds himself portrayed as controlling, hypocritical, or even exploitative, depending on which outlet you read. This duality isn't accidental. It's the machinery of modern celebrity warfare, where empathy becomes a currency and outrage becomes marketing. When the lawsuit hit public awareness, the mainstream coverage didn't immediately ask, "What happened?" It asked, "Who benefits from this narrative?" Entertainment journalism has evolved into an arena where every detail is weaponized for virality. Gossip sites, TikTok analysts, and YouTube commentators began dissecting the story frame by frame, screenshot by screenshot, searching for symbols of deceit. The line between legal reality and social media storytelling dissolved. Suddenly, we weren't witnessing a case. We were consuming a serialized drama designed for clicks. That's the cruel irony of this ecosystem. Once you're part of it, even your downfall becomes content. The public doesn't care about truth. It cares about emotional payoff. A well-timed headline can ruin a career faster than any court ruling can redeem it. What makes this case particularly magnetic isn't just the involvement of two powerful names. It's the hypocrisy it exposes. Hollywood thrives on narratives of female empowerment, yet often uses those same narratives to destroy women once they cease to serve the brand. It champions men like Baldoni for their compassion, but abandons them when that compassion threatens established hierarchies. This is not a war of genders. It's a war of control disguised as one. Behind every smiling red carpet photo lies 100 NDAs, PR memos, and whispered threats. The illusion of harmony is worth billions. Because in this world, optics are oxygen, and authenticity is a liability. And as the media storm intensified, fans became divided into camps, those who saw Blake as the betrayed icon and those who saw Justin as the misunderstood visionary. The internet, fueled by moral outrage, turned into a gladiator arena where everyone wanted to feel righteous. The truth got buried under hashtags and hot takes. Algorithms don't care who's innocent, they care who's trending. And every retweet, every reaction, did you see what she said, becomes another drop of blood in the pool of engagement metrics. This is where Hollywood and social media fully merge. The economy of attention feeds on controversy. And so long as you're being talked about, you're profitable, even when you're being destroyed. At its core, the Baldoni, lively conflict isn't just a story about two celebrities. It's a dissection of a system that confuses visibility with virtue. It forces us to ask uncomfortable questions. Who gets to define morality when money and image are the stakes? How much authenticity can survive in an industry where silence is bought and apologies are pre-scripted? Hollywood has always been a mirror, but this time, it reflects something far darker. An industry built on emotional manipulation, curated outrage, and the myth that redemption can be branded. And as this ecosystem continues to evolve, it becomes clear, this isn't just about Blake or Justin anymore. It's about the machinery that built them both, and the audience that keeps it alive. Who holds it, who loses it, and how it's disguised as integrity. When Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni's fallout erupted beyond creative differences and into whispered allegations, cease and desists, and the weaponization of sources close to, Hollywood didn't see a legal case. It saw content. Every lawyer's statement became a script, every courtroom filing a storyline crafted to outmaneuver public sympathy. The true courtroom wasn't made of marble. It was digital, broadcast through TikTok stitches, reaction videos, and PR-fed exclusives timed to trend on a Tuesday morning. Whoever mastered the algorithm mastered the verdict. Blake's team moved first, shaping her narrative not as the aggressor, but as the injured professional forced into conflict by a collaborator who couldn't handle her boundaries. Her silence became a strategy. Silence reads as dignity when your image is immaculate. Behind the scenes, though, publicists and attorneys choreographed every gesture. A carefully worded post about self-care, a sudden appearance at a charity gala, a strategically leaked friend's concern. The art of PR in Hollywood is to manufacture coincidence, to make manipulation look like fate. Every move Blake made during the chaos served a dual purpose: reclaim moral high ground while distracting from whatever might surface next. The brilliance of her control lay in its invisibility. Justin's response was less rehearsed, more human, and that became both his weapon and his weakness. When he spoke about accountability, kindness, and truth, he wasn't wrong, but sincerity doesn't outperform strategy in an ecosystem engineered for optics. Hollywood doesn't reward vulnerability unless it can be monetized. So when Justin's tone cracked, when he hesitated or over-explained, the machine turned on him. His empathy, once his strongest trait, was reframed as guilt. His openness was edited into instability. It's not the first time Hollywood devours one of its own for breaking the illusion of perfection, and it won't be the last. But what makes this story particularly revealing is how efficiently the machinery recalibrated to protect Blake's brand image. The mother, the entrepreneur, the Hollywood royal, even as whispers of coercion and narrative manipulation swirled beneath. Control in this industry isn't achieved by shouting louder, it's by owning the narrative architecture. You control the outlets that frame the story, the journalists who depend on your access, the influencers whose livelihoods depend on staying in your good graces. Hollywood's gossip economy functions like an underground network, favors traded for silence, stories killed in exchange for future exclusives. When Justin's side tried to release statements about unfair coverage or legal inconsistencies, they found themselves outnumbered, outpublished, and algorithmically suppressed. The big platforms didn't amplify his truth, they amplified the version of events that fed engagement. The ecosystem that once celebrated his sensitivity now treated it as liability. This is the invisible hand of power, not censorship, but saturation. You don't silence someone. You drown them in louder noise. By this stage, even friends became strategic assets. Selena Gomez's quiet distancing from Blake raised eyebrows, while Ryan Reynolds' neutral posture was studied like a foreign policy statement. In Hollywood, alliances are not friendships. They are insurance policies. Everyone positions themselves for plausible deniability. When you're inside the system, you learn quickly. Loyalty lasts only as long as relevance does. What makes this entire saga more fascinating than tragic is how it exposes the emotional cost of reputation management. Public image in Hollywood is a form of currency backed by pain. The brighter the light, the darker the shadow you must hide behind. Blake's restraint was praised as maturity, yet those close to production insiders spoke of intimidation, threats, and a network of handlers who ensured every version of her story aligned with the empowered woman brand her team had built for a decade. Justin's legal team, in turn, tried to push back not through scandal, but through documentation, contracts, email threads, text logs, but facts rarely beat feelings online. That's the dark beauty of this ecosystem. Truth doesn't win. Timing does. Whoever drops their version first, in the right emotional tone, in the right algorithmic moment, owns the narrative long before evidence enters the conversation. Hollywood lawyers know this. PR strategists know this. Even journalists quietly know this. That's why the legal proceedings and the social narrative moved on parallel tracks, one guided by law, the other by emotion. But while courts can be appealed, the internet's judgment is permanent. Once public opinion tilts, the damage calcifies. A person doesn't lose just a case, they lose cultural permission to be believed. And yet, through the chaos, a strange phenomenon began to unfold. The audience, weary of perfection, started sensing the artifice. They began asking harder questions about how much of justice in Hollywood is real and how much is scripted. Influencers, independent commentators, even former insiders began exposing the patterns, coordinated media drops, synchronized talking points, the same phrases recycled across gossip sites. It was as if the curtain had been pulled back for a second, revealing the stagehands of the industry. But still, the system held.
Why?
Because as much as people claim to hate manipulation, they crave the drama it creates. Outrage sells. Redemption arcs sell even more. And this scandal, Blake's composure, Justin's fall from grace, the legal gray areas between them, became the perfect storm of both. By the midpoint of their conflict, it was no longer about who wronged whom. It became a case study in control. Blake embodied the corporate side of Hollywood, calculated, pristine, image-driven. Justin represented the emotional reformer, the one trying to inject honesty into an industry allergic to it. The clash wasn't accidental. It was systemic. They were symbols of two incompatible forces: authenticity versus image, humanity versus profitability. And the machine fed on their opposition. The same outlets that tore Justin apart would later praise his resilience when he resurfaced. The same fans who vilified Blake would later buy her next brand collaboration as if nothing happened. Because that's how this ecosystem sustains itself, by converting moral chaos into financial rhythm. And somewhere between the court filings and the headlines, the line blurred so completely that even they, Blake and Justin, seemed to lose sight of who they were fighting anymore. Was it each other? Or the invisible machinery feeding off their pain? Because in Hollywood, you can fight for truth, but you can't fight the algorithm. It always wins. In the shimmering chaos of Hollywood, where light and shadow perform their eternal duet, the ecosystem of fame operates like an intricate maze, engineered not for truth, but for spectacle. When Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively's names collided in a whirlwind of lawsuits, media narratives, and moral positioning, it wasn't just another celebrity feud. It became a blueprint of how power manipulates perception in the modern entertainment machine. The industry thrives on illusion, the ability to craft a story so polished, so theatrically precise, that audiences forget to question what lies behind the curtain. This isn't about who's right or wrong. It's about how each move, each statement, and each silence is weaponized to protect empires. Blake Lively, the golden girl of charm and control, and Justin Baldoni, the idealistic filmmaker who preaches empathy and equality, found themselves at the center of a storm that revealed the darker mechanics of Hollywood respectability. Both are products and prisoners of an ecosystem that rewards deception when it's aesthetically appealing. Fame, here, isn't just about acting, it's about survival. You don't just sell art, you sell the illusion that you're unbreakable, and in that illusion lies both power and poison. It began like most Hollywood collisions do, not with a scandal, but with collaboration. The whispers began during the production talks that involved narrative ownership, contract, and creative authority. Then, as tension grew, the story mutated into something uglier. Accusations, PR warfare, and moral posturing. What was once artistic partnership turned into a chess match of egos, played not in private, but across tabloids, legal filings, and digital battlegrounds where fandoms became foot soldiers. And here's the most dangerous truth of this ecosystem. What you see on social media isn't chaos, it's choreography. Every leak, every anonymous insider tip, every sudden silence is part of a calculated rhythm designed to control emotional tempo. Hollywood doesn't deal in truth, it deals in reactions. Whoever controls the audience's reaction controls the narrative. Blake Lively, the immaculate performer both on and off screen, mastered the art of strategic vulnerability. Her social media presence is curated softness, motherhood, elegance, humor, and just enough self-deprecation to disarm criticism. But beneath that warmth lies the precision of a strategist. Her PR teams understand how to blend empathy with dominance, turning every accusation into a mirror that reflects her as misunderstood rather than manipulative. She doesn't need to scream. She controls the temperature of the room simply by appearing unbothered. Justin Baldoni, on the other hand, represents the new Hollywood moralist, the man who speaks of kindness, accountability, and emotional intelligence, yet now finds himself portrayed as controlling, hypocritical, or even exploitative, depending on which outlet you read. This duality isn't accidental. It's the machinery of modern celebrity warfare, where empathy becomes a currency and outrage becomes marketing. When the lawsuit hit public awareness, the mainstream coverage didn't immediately ask, "What happened?" When the noise began to fade and the hashtags started losing traction, what remained wasn't closure, it was exhaustion. Hollywood doesn't end stories, it buries them under new scandals. The Blake Lively versus Justin Baldoni conflict had burned bright enough to feed the tabloids, the YouTube commentators, and the PR firms that orbit around chaos like vultures circling gold. But every storm leaves debris, and this one scattered more than broken reputations. It exposed the fragility of a system pretending to be unshakable. For months, both camps went silent, not because peace had been achieved, but because exhaustion had become a strategy. Silence is the only thing more powerful than a statement in this ecosystem. It lets the public fill in the blanks themselves. And as attention shifted toward fresher controversies, the industry exhaled, not out of relief, but calculation. It had fed, profited, and moved on, leaving two human beings to sweep up what remained of their public identities. Justin Baldoni's journey post-conflict became a quiet dissection of how Hollywood rewards and punishes authenticity. Once branded the gentle revolutionary of emotional masculinity, his image was now viewed through suspicion. The industry that once applauded his vulnerability began labeling it as volatility. He didn't disappear, he recalibrated. Behind closed doors, he reportedly sought smaller projects, independent collaborations, and spaces where reputation didn't overshadow purpose. But the industry has a cruel way of whispering reputations into permanence. No matter what he said or created, there would always be a digital echo reminding the world of the controversy. That's the curse of visibility. Fame never forgets. You can apologize, rebuild, reinvent, but the internet archives everything. Every misstep becomes a permanent shadow, every apology a footnote to someone's bias. Yet, even in that isolation, Justin's story reflected something profoundly human, the struggle to exist authentic. in a world that monetizes pain. His downfall wasn't the scandal. It was the realization that empathy has no place in an ecosystem where perception is more valuable than truth. For Blake Lively, the aftermath looked cleaner, but it was no less costly. Her silence worked, but silence has a price. Though her image largely recovered, subtle cracks appeared beneath the gloss. Audiences began questioning her authenticity in ways they hadn't before. Was her warmth genuine or choreographed? Was her empowerment narrative a conviction or a campaign? That's the risk of perfect branding. One controversy can turn admiration into suspicion overnight. Yet, Blake's mastery of reinvention prevailed. She re-emerged strategically, new ventures, selective appearances, the occasional family moment to soften her edges again. Each step designed not to rebuild, but to remind. Her PR team understood something most don't. Redemption in Hollywood isn't about truth. It's about rhythm. You wait long enough, you distract well enough, and you rewrite history through new headlines. Soon, the story becomes less about what happened and more about what she did next. That's how control returns, not through explanation but evolution. And yet, despite all the rebranding, something irreversible had occurred. The curtain had been lifted too high for too long. Audiences had glimpsed how narrative control really works, how easily justice becomes aesthetic, how quickly empathy becomes a marketing tool. This scandal wasn't isolated. It was a symptom, a reminder that in modern celebrity culture, morality isn't about what's right, it's about what's profitable. The legal arguments, the hidden recordings, the conflicting statements, all became background noise to a larger truth. Hollywood doesn't seek truth, it seeks momentum. As long as there's engagement, there's value. This is what truth looks like when filtered through fame. It forces us to question not just them, but ourselves. Why do we reward the illusion of vulnerability more than the reality of it? Why do we trust narratives polished by PR more than the shaky honesty of imperfection? Because comfort sells. Because chaos entertains. Because redemption, when monetized, feels safer than truth. In the end, both Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni remain standing, but forever altered. Their names, their images, their legacies, each now carries the residue of a public war fought behind smiles. The industry will go on pretending it's about storytelling and art, but every insider knows it's about perception, and perception is the most powerful currency in Hollywood. The ecosystem that birthed, broke, and rebuilt them both will continue spinning, feeding off its own contradictions, dressing exploitation as empowerment, and selling trauma as entertainment. Because as long as there's light, there will be shadow. And in Hollywood, shadow always finds a spotlight.